I'm disappointed, sad, betrayed. If you don't mind hearing the tale of a stupid girl and have a chance to make fun of someone, here goes. A few months ago, I started dating Chris, who was a sweetheart. I'm only 20, and even though he's a little older, he's 29, he treated me well, respected me, and helped me with my stuff. He has a degree in psychology, and he talked to me a lot about love languages and how he was gift-giving. It was very strange at first because I was coming out of a pretty chaotic relationship. I had a boyfriend in high school, the only guy I had ever been with my whole life. I'll tell you the whole story, so you're not in limbo. Let's just say his name was Bob. Bob was the first boy who ever talked to me. Context: I wasn't that pretty at the beginning of high school, but as the years went by and puberty hit, I admit that I transformed from an ugly caterpillar to a beautiful butterfly, and I apologize for that simplistic comparison. You will see that writing is not my thing. And it was with Chris that I realized that the relationship I had with Bob was the chronicle of a death foretold. It was as bad and toxic to the point where Bob was overly jealous of me with anyone. Of course, he made me feel wanted and desired. Now I have the freedom and confidence to say that I'm hot, hehe. And I became alienated from many people just to follow him and be at his side. Chris commented that it was because I was in my comfort zone. Being the first person I was dating, I didn't think it was going to be that bad, but I decided to play along. And so it went on for several years, ignoring other suitors, friends, and even my own family. It wasn't easy, but I managed to get out of it just when I started being with Chris. He's a cousin of a friend of mine, and he was the one who advised me to get out of that relationship one night when we were talking at a party, and I thank God Bob hadn't been there, otherwise it would have been a disaster. Anyway, I got up the courage and started the conversation where I told Bob that I didn't want to be with him anymore, that I had had enough of him and that I wanted a life apart. He didn't take it well, as he said that I was the most beautiful girl he had ever seen in his life, and he wouldn't give that up. It was a tough season, where I had to put up with him like chewing gum on my shoe, as he wrote and looked for me wherever I went. Eventually, he got tired of it and finally got away from me, finding himself another victim within 2 weeks. For me, she might as well have been my sister, but I just wanted him to leave me alone. During that time, I began to get a little more intimate with Chris, whom I had been talking to for a while. I kept telling myself, with some help from him, that I shouldn't jump right into a relationship so quickly, but he was such a gentleman, attentive and helpful, that I just couldn't pass up that opportunity, and my red flag bells went off when mutual friends told me that several girls were after him because of how handsome, smart, and charismatic he was. So, I started to throw myself at him a little more. I used to write him in the mornings and evenings, and I would surprise him in some places, pretending it was just a coincidence, until at a party we started talking privately, and I got him to ask me the question. I was super nervous. I hadn't dated anyone in so many years, and I felt like I could eat the world at that moment. At one point, I even thought I should have dated other guys before, but one of my friends was telling me it wasn't worth it. She's been with her boyfriend for almost 10 years, and she says that when the person is the right one, every day feels like a good choice. That phrase always makes me melt. Anyway, at first I thought the age difference might be quite noticeable since we wouldn't have that many things in common, but I remember my mom saying that sometimes it was better to look for an older man because he always knew what to do and protected you like no other. She and my dad were precisely 10 years apart. So, after much reflection, I got caught up in the moment and said yes to his proposal to be his girlfriend. That night, after many years of dubious, forced, and toxic engagements, I felt like I was finally able to get a little closer to what my true concept of full happiness was. And that's how our story together began. I can't deny that it has been a great few months, where I could finally make up for so many years lost in a relationship that wasn't worth it, and it made me realize that there was so much more to find when it came to love. He listened to me, he let me go out, he became friends with my mother, who at first frowned upon the age difference, ironic, isn't it? And he was charming with my friends. Of course, sometimes there were small conflicts with the age issue. For example, he had to work while I had a day off from college, or I couldn't attend the parties he invited me to because I had a very important exam the next day. But he told me that all that was common under our conditions and that this could still be good if I learned about love languages, a subject I now know backward and forward thanks to him. He told me that there are 5 love languages and that I professed a lot of quality time, wanting to be around him as much as possible. However, He goes more towards acts of service and presents, as he has always given me gifts. That is a very important aspect, and one that I almost left out of this whole story. For as long as I have known him, Chris has always been a gift giver. At every get-together, he always brings snacks to share or gives his parents a little something for the house, and I am no exception. He has always told me that it is very important to know what our love language is, but it is also important to know what your partner's language is like, because that is the key to a long-lasting relationship. Not many people pay attention to this, he tells me. It matters how we react to this display of affection. For example, if my love language is physical touch, caresses, kisses, hugs, intimacy, but my partner doesn't like it, then there will be chaos in the relationship because he rejects the best way. I have to let him know that I like him. He tells me that many relationships have failed precisely because they do not understand each other's actions, and that if we want to last over time, we must take care of the issue. We are interested in how we react to each other's displays of affection, so if I want to be by his side, he finds a way to have some free time so he can be with me. Even if I am doing homework, he simply stays by my side without talking or helping me as much as possible. And this is when it all starts to fall apart, because this is when he starts to show his acts of affection, or tokens of affection. As I said, he's very much into giving gifts and presents, whether he buys you candy or makes a craft, and I thought he was the second type. Let me explain. When it was official that we were going to be boyfriend and girlfriend, he started giving me various crafts. The first thing he gave me was a little golden box that had a picture of us on the inside of the lid, saying that I could put my most valuable belongings in there. Then he gave me a series of cards, like coupons, that I could exchange for a hug, a kiss, a picnic, a trip to the movies, or something else, which I thought was very sweet. A little wall holder and a few other crafts. Everything looked like it had a lot of effort and dedication. Just the coupons must have taken him at least a month to cut out, draw, paint, etc. And although I couldn't imagine him doing that kind of thing, either because of how childish or innocent it was, or because of all the time involved, I took it as him, even taking time out of his busy schedule to bring me a special gift. One that was simple, humble, and at the same time, powerfully affectionate. It all seemed too good to be true, and that's when I fell into the trap. He explained to me that we tend to fall into the error that we tend to using the same love language as our partner, under the belief that they want to receive the same as they give, a perspective not at all wrong. Sometimes it costs a little, but others not so much, and in my case, it was a 50-50. I say 50-50 because, although I may like the practice of giving gifts, let's say I'm not very good at it. Everything comes from a trauma generated precisely by Bob, in which I gave him a box of chocolates in high school, and his friends started to laugh. The trauma didn't come because of the mockery, but because he was allergic to white chocolate, and they were precisely that kind. The teasing grew because it was something his friends knew, and that generated in me a feeling of guilt of I don't know the person well enough to know what he wants. So I had a better idea. Much more simplistic and beastly, but better. I would just give him the money. Now, I know what you may be thinking. Oh, how basic. What a cold heart. But the truth is, it worked for me for a few reasons. You see, although Chris has his job and clientele, he doesn't make enough to afford more robust gifts. He has to deal with family expenses, his parents are retired, and he has a special baby sister, and sometimes he doesn't have enough to give himself nice things. So I told him that I could give him the money, and his face started to shine with happiness. And how could he not if what he was doing was taking advantage of me? I understand that you are now confused, because now comes the part of the story where everything takes a twist, and all because of the most soap operatic reason in the world, a single hair. In the few months I had been dating Chris, he had already given me about 20 gifts by hand, which I had in a part of my room as a very special corner. During the last Sunday that he was out with his friends, I was alone in my house, without much to do, so I started talking to a cousin who lives in London, and she asked me about Chris. Obviously, in my silly girlfriend's excitement, I started showing her all the gifts he had given me, and I noticed something in one of the little boxes with popsicle sticks he had given me. Of course, I had to hide the thing well, because when I noticed it, I understood that my cousin could see it from the phone camera. We were on a video call. And when I noticed it, I moved on to the next item, but then decided to lock up because I had things to do. The thing is, I had spotted red hair, but coppery red, one of the reddest I had ever seen in my life. It was stuck between one of the rows of sticks, and I had to be careful not to let the silicone break it completely. I was very curious because nobody, and when I say nobody, it's because nobody around me has red hair, and I don't know anybody with red hair. Only a childhood friend, maybe from kindergarten or first grade, I don't remember. But she lived several states away and I hadn't seen her for years. Otherwise, she was a total mystery. And that's when my alerts went on. I didn't know of anyone with red hair that Chris frequented, and I've always made fun of those paranoid girlfriends who go through their partner's belongings, but now this was serious. And I couldn't find a way to get the image of Chris with a redhead out of my head. But I tell you, it was almost unnatural, because I felt like calling him right then and there. I started looking at his list of friends on social networks. Imagine how much of a stalker I had become, how pathetic, and I started looking at them one by one. The most problematic ones were the ones with black and white profile pics. Of those, I only found 2, the rest were brunettes or brown. But none of the possible options could be, since almost all of them lived around these parts, which added to the mystery. A part of me wished I had stayed with just the hair riddle, because then my little Sherlock brain started to check things out more. I came across 2 big details. The first was on the little box I told you about that had a picture on the lid. In the corners of the photo, there were big silicone dots, as if to fix the photo well, something I didn't understand because it ruined the aesthetics of the image. Although at first it hurt me a lot, curiosity had won me over, and I ended up breaking the cover of the box to see the photo well, and what I found? A picture of him with another girl, a redhead. What started as doubt turned to terror, as now I didn't mind taking all of his gifts and looking at them to see what it was all about. The other big detail was on a plaque to put on the wall, which was beautifully painted, with the artistic gifts I didn't know Chris had, as it was so out of tune with the rest of the things he had given me, but with some marks on the back, crudely painted as if someone else had done it, when I saw, actually, the piece of wood that had that painted part was glued on and had a relief on the side of it. What I saw almost made me faint. It said, "A lifetime together," and a date that dated back to just a month ago. It also had 2 names, Chris and Rinah. I already had a name and appearance, so the rest was mere internet research. All this research I'm telling you about, I realize I've written too much today, and I haven't done this since my teenage stories in high school. Was a week ago, less than a week, and I've been researching the girl, and at the moment, although I can't give a deep relationship with Chris, I'm still keeping my eye on her. I've wanted to investigate her more, but I don't have time with all the homework I have. I'm thinking of an alternative plan to gather more information. Update 1. Read well, because this will be the craziest story you will ever read in your lives. Let's see. First of all, I tell you that I'm still with Chris, but only and exclusively to see him fall, since I have designed a plan to humiliate him for everything he has done to us. And I say us because the other girl, Rinah, is also a victim of all this. You don't know the plan I put together. It's almost like a Hollywood movie. First, I needed help from some friends to investigate the girl. Rinah lives in the outskirts of the city and loves anime, cosplay, and stuff. It turns out that she's also dating Chris, but the 2 of them have been together since long before he even met me. The situation with her is tricky, since I learned that she's not that resourceful either, and that apparently Chris is dating both of us without mentioning anything to the other. In other words, Rinah is also being cheated on. How did I know this? Thanks to my spies. It was one of my cousins, who along with his high school friends helped me spy on Chris. I know it sounds crazy, but those guys did their job very well. They helped me find her and even gave me a video of when they went out to eat. According to the video and what they told me, the situation was awkward, because he was treating the other girl kind of badly. I mean, they hardly spoke when they were together, and the few times they did was when she gave him a handmade present. And this is where it all gets murky, because a few days later, Chris gave me that same gift, but with slight modifications. It's what I thought all along. Or, well, those are my guesses. He alters the gifts Rinah makes and gives them to me, knowing that I will give him money for his stuff, and he can spend it however he feels like it. My cousin was speechless when he told me that, since he knew how much Chris loved me, and it was a game changer. Now I'm not so relationship-minded, and he's noticed. But you may wonder why I'm still with him, and the answer is very simple. Revenge. From the moment I found out, I started to come up with a plan to humiliate him and make a fool of him in front of other people. And the truth is that I can come up with a pretty effective one. In a few weeks, it will be Chris's birthday, and there will be a gathering at his house to celebrate it. Friends and some of his contemporary family members will be there. It's going to be a big party, and I'll make sure to give him a surprise he'll never forget by inviting Rinah to the event. I know that theirs is a half-clandestine thing. I'm the relationship that shows the public, while she's the other one. The one they only meet for kisses and occasional outings in places where no one will find them together. So I know he'll be surprised when he sees her among the other people. That and me revealing everything that's going on in front of the whole crowd. That's right, I'm going to spit the tea, so everyone realizes that the populist psychologist can become a disgusting person, manipulating, deceiving, and conning others. I feel kind of silly for having believed his tales of the master's language. I guess I let myself be fooled pretty easily, but what makes me sadder is that I'm not the only one in the game. Update 2. Life smiles on some people, and I'm part of that group. I just came from Chris's party, and let me tell you, everything went great. Of course, not for him. Here's what happened. I was, for obvious reasons, one of the people in charge of the party, organizing it to be a surprise, and I was the one who was surprised when I saw that most of the people invited confirmed their attendance. The more people, the better. On the list was also another little person, who was Rinah herself. Through mutual friends, I managed to contact her, under the condition that she would not say anything to Chris, otherwise she would ruin the surprise. Here I was already assured that he wouldn't find out anything. At first, I was told that she was reluctant. As their relationship was not yet public, she was surprised that we invited her. She said she wasn't going to go so as not to make us uncomfortable or anything. I didn't know if she knew of my existence and my relationship with Chris, but I couldn't care less. I just wanted it to be her for the next step. I consume a lot of content on social media, and some time ago, I came across a video of a girl revealing an infidelity. I gave the most random like, and I thank God for that, because I fed the algorithm to come up with more videos on that topic, and I said to myself, why not make my own? You don't know how anxious I was about the whole thing. Despite everything, I kept my distance from Chris, pretending to have exams at the university. I wanted everyone to brag about what a phony he was as a person, and how hypocritical he was in professing a quality of love when he didn't apply it himself. I feel like he thought I was distant because of his birthday thing. You know, like in the cartoons, they pretend to be upset, so that on the day of the birthday they reveal that it was all a sham. Well, this would not be the case on this occasion. Heh. I even put together a speech for the event, and I thought that in a parallel universe, that speech would have been something nice, full of sweet words to further my love for him. It's amazing how no one can be trusted anymore. I've only had 2 relationships, and both of them went down the drain. Anyway, on the day of the party, everyone arrived. But it wasn't until Rinah showed up that the whole thing started. That's when I got excited. What's more, I had a little cheat since I told Chris to greet all the guests as they arrived, and I could see something in his eyes when he saw Rinah. I must say he is a very good actor since his look of dread only lasted less than half a second. And if I should have felt bad for anyone, it was Rinah. She was in a very flashy purple dress, quite pretty, and I was more annoyed that Chris took advantage of the 2 of us. He was quite surprised to see her, but he made a big mistake. Instead of treating her as just another acquaintance and being glad to see her, he denied her. He simply introduced himself and asked me if she was part of my guests. The look on Rinah's face was something that broke my heart and soul, and I was more certain than ever that I wanted to go through with my plan. The party went on, and I was trembling a little because they were almost ready to start asking for birthday songs for cake nibbles. It was then that I took the floor to say something about Chris. I had already learned my speech, and I was going to give you a copy-paste so you could see more or less how it went, but I will end up giving you a smash-up of how the live version went, because I liked how it all turned out. Good night, everyone, blah, 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 talking about Chris's bull S and stuff. And so I wanted to thank a little person in particular, Rinah Sargsachriet, for being here, since she's a special person to my boyfriend, even though he seemed to not know her when she arrived. And before you're leaving, Rinah, at this moment, the girl was in automatic panic mode, wanting to leave the place as soon as possible. I have to say, I have nothing against you, but I wish I could say that to Chris. At this point, Chris wanted to interrupt me, but people around didn't let him do it. Now he was the one who wanted to leave. Rinah, do you recognize this? I showed the little painted box Chris gave to me. Now she had a shocked expression. For those who don't know, Chris gave me this beautiful box as one of his many presents, since he's an expert in love language, projecting gifts as his main one. But guess what? It was all a hoax. These presents are made by Rinah, who gave them to Chris as a true sign of affection, and there's more because this son of a gun, I have to avoid the strong words, is a cheater who dated 2 girls at the same time. Thank God someone turned the music off. All eyes were on Chris and Rinah, with her crying and looking at her Romeo. It broke a couple of hearts, including mine. He altered these presents and transformed them into something for me, knowing that the best thing I could give to him was money. God knows in what he spent the money. The rest of the speech was just me insulting him, and I loved how all the people turned against him. I thought Rinah would be crying, but nothing at all. She just went right next to me and said, "Thank you." Turns out that she didn't know as well about me and was kept silent by Chris, saying that their relationship shouldn't be public because she's one of her patients. This brought a new sight into perspective, and we knew how to get a proper revenge for it. I will give you the details later, but for now, I can rest calmly in my bed, knowing that I could strike back this time. Update 3. It's been like a while since I was here, and I can't imagine how anxious you must have been not knowing the end of this story. I don't know if there's a proper ending, but still, I will tell you what happened. After the whole situation with Chris went viral in my city, there were major changes. First of all, he lost most of his patients because of the Rinah deal. Rinah's parents wanted to sue Chris for unprofessional behavior, and he got lucky they didn't proceed, since this would have gone to the psychology authorities and would scale up to taking his license away. But that was the only thing that did not happen to him. He lost friends, and even his own family turned against him. People started to trash talk about him on the internet, and as far as I know, he hasn't managed to get a date again. And what about Rinah, you may ask? In the end, we remained in contact, and she thanked me, like a lot, for what I did. And she said she suffered from social anxiety, and somehow Chris was helping her to get into a more expressive manner, but didn't work so well, as she can recall. He treated her like garbage, and the worst part was that she didn't have the strength to do something about it. Even worse, all the money I gave to him, he never even used to buy something for Rinah. I know it sounds weird that I talk like this about the person who was also dating my boyfriend, but he was an a-hole and from the worst kind. The kind that makes you think that he can save your life, not knowing that you can save yourself. I feel like a new me nowadays, and Rinah has become a great friend of mine. How ironic, ha ha ha. The last thing I knew about Chris was that he got a new patient, my other ex-boyfriend, Bob. The world is a tissue, honestly. Well, good luck to them. I'm off of the dating world for a time. I don't think I need a boy in my life right now. Even less if he's that old. Thanks, Chris, for letting me know that I should go for guys my age, or 3 years older if so. I just want to have some fun with my friends, Rinah included, and to be a new me.